We have some breaking news as the day has finally come where William Nylander has officially signed his extension with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and after waiting months of negotiations, hearing about how a deal could get done, the day has officially come. So on this episode, we'll break down the exact contract details because the numbers are a bit different than what we were expecting. So stay tuned for all that in this episode. But before we do, a quick reminder to hit the subscribe button. About 80% of you who are watching right now aren't subscribed, so scroll down, and if you aren't already, hit that button. We're on the road to 6,000, and it would mean a lot to Darius and I. Darius, the day has come. I made a video on this yesterday. I discussed it, kind of what it means for the Leafs going forward. So I'm glad you're here for this one. And it happened. I don't even really know how to feel. There's a lot of stuff to break in here. Pierre LeBrun, William Nylander's deal, now official, includes a $69 million signing bonus. So $69 million of the $92 million total in bonus money. Full NMC, no trade clause, all this stuff for all 8 years. And you see the Maple Leafs tweeted this 8 for 88, meaning this could be confusing. It's 8 years, 92 million, not 8 years, 88 million, but he's number 88. So ultimately, 8 years, 92 million, tons of different stuff, no trade clause, no move clause, all this stuff. 8 years. He is a Maple Leaf. He's going to need to find a home in Toronto for the next 8 years if he doesn't have one already. What are your thoughts on this deal? The day's finally come. All the speculation is over. It's happened.
Finally, the day has come. I hate the contract talk throughout the whole seasons, like especially the Marner year. It just drags on. There's too many numbers thrown out. It's finally here. He's signed, and there's like some relief and stress released throughout Leafs Nation today, where it's like, all right, we got him locked up for 8 years. It's not like 4 years, 5 years. All right, he's here for 8 years. He's committed. The dollar amount is certainly not what people thought at the beginning of the year, and even as recent as yesterday, it's a little bit different. But yeah, I think there's just some relief going into it. If we want to start, optimistically, it's great that Nylander is a Maple Leaf for another 8 years, and I think it's funny that he got 69 million nice in signing bonuses in his contract. So nice that he signed. Nice to have him locked up, and he's one of the best players. And I'm not joking. Like, I'm not just saying it. He's one of the best players in the NHL this year. So it's nice.
Yeah, it is very nice. Yeah, and the funny number aside, that is an extremely high amount of signing bonus money. It's a huge contract, full no move clause, all this stuff. Now, I kind of discussed this on the video yesterday. I kind of took some Leafs fans' reactions. There were a lot of people who like the deal. A lot of people. I don't think there's many fans out there who would say this is a bad contract, but there's also not many fans out there who are saying that it's a good contract. I think they're kind of just saying it's what had to be done. And when you look at William Nylander, he's 96th percentile WAR projecting. This is from Jay Fresh Hockey. If you're unfamiliar with him, he does all these fancy graphics. So shout out to him for this. But Darius, you mentioned it. He is one of, if not, he's one of the top 5 best, especially offensive players. He's one of the best wingers in the league. He's only 27 years old. And now he is going to be paid a ridiculous amount of money. And there's a lot to go down. This is just the initial reaction video. Some other stuff came out from Elliot Friedman revealing a lot of interesting details about this. But I just took some screenshots just on my initial feed on Twitter here about kind of the contract. And here's what one person said. Is it a good contract? Not really. Is it bad contract? No, not really. It's market value for an elite player in the NHL. But he also said kind of wish someone who wanted to be here took a bit less. And that's an interesting point as well. I mean, we were thinking back to the start of the season, before the season started, and how we wanted William Nylander. We wanted the deal to get done, so this didn't have to happen. And ultimately, huge shout out to Nylander. Obviously, he played it the best he could have. He wanted to bet on himself to a degree. The Leafs, obviously, I think they were offering between 9 and 10 million, maybe on the lower side of that, over a similar amount of years. And Darius, he played himself into a contract that is much bigger than we thought. And with each goal he scored, like we were making jokes on earlier in the season, it ultimately paid dividends because his price skyrocketed. And now 9 or 8 years, 92 million seems a bit absurd. But I mean, it is what it is. You had to do it. You couldn't let him walk this free agency, even though I don't think he would have. I mean, his price probably would have kept going up. There would have been a team out there who does it. It just makes it a bit difficult now with all the Marner contract, the Tavares, and all this stuff. But the cap hit is increasing.
Yeah, I mean, he's been progressing. If you look at it logically, he's been progressing every year. He just gets better every year. And I know it's a contract year, so there's a little bit of pushback where people are like, you don't want to give him this amount of money because he's only playing well because it's a contract year. Nylander's the type of guy who's just progressively gotten better. So he's earned this money. He's on par with guys who make that money in the NHL. So you can't pay him less. And like you said, you kind of wish that guys who want to be here would take less. I mean, Morgan Riley is a guy who did exactly that because market value is probably like 9.5 right now. He only makes 7.5. So you'd kind of hope that they would take less. It kind of puts the Leafs in a weird kind of spot now cap wise, especially next year. I don't know what they're going to do next year. A lot of people are crunching numbers, but I don't think it's as easy as using like Cap Friendly's like number cruncher or whatever calculator, because there's humans involved and agents. So I don't think it's that easy, but it kind of puts them in a weird spot here. But in terms of Nylander as a player, he's earned it. He deserves it. And I think he probably could have got like 13 on the open market. Like, I'm not joking. He's that good. And a team would probably pay him for that. So, like you said, I think there's just a lot of moving pieces now that they have to look at. They have a lot of guys making a lot of money. And there might be a few who are odd man out, and they have to, look at moving them if possible, especially for next year. I think next year is like a real wild card year, because after next year, Tavares comes off the books. I think Marner does too. If correct me if I'm wrong, but then they can really look at things in their options there. But for next year, at least, it's going to be interesting. I have no idea what they're going to do. Tree Living has to get very creative, but the fact of the matter is, and what I'm happy about, is that the Leafs have Nylander locked up for 8 years, and I think that's what matters at a decent rate for what he produces. I think.
Yeah, I mean, they ultimately retain the asset that they homegrown asset at that, and I discussed it in yesterday's video. And you basically just said the same thing I said. It's going to get very, I guess, messy would be the best word. You're probably going to have to, especially next season, and depending how they do all these contracts, you're going to have to rely on prospects performing very well. Specifically, probably Fraser Minton's going to be asked to have a much bigger role because obviously their cap hit is much lower. You're going to have to hit on some cheap free agents like they attempted to do, I guess, this year with Ryan Reeves. Not necessarily cheapest, but players like that, John Klingberg. You're going to have to hit on free agents who aren't necessarily getting paid a ton. And I think they can do that, especially if their team continues to grow. But it makes for a very messy next couple of years. But again, we just keep coming back to the fact that the alternative was letting him go for nothing, or I guess maybe even the price of William Nylander increasing. And I don't think there's a world where they'd let that happen. We would have loved to get this done last summer. We discussed it. Morgan Riley didn't have any of these. You mentioned his name. He didn't have any of these contract negotiations at least really go public. He just signed in the offseason. Signed when there wasn't any stress going on. Signed for a discounted deal, depending. Now it looks like definitely a discounted deal with the way he's playing. And ultimately, that was, and fans love him for it. Fans aren't hating on Nylander. If anything, Brad Treliving maybe should have. I can't believe that William Nylander necessarily was asking for this amount of money this summer. I feel like he could have accepted a smaller deal this summer, even if it was a little bit less. But that's just speculation on my part. I don't think Brad Treliving was close to this number if you rewind a few months ago before the season started. But I mean, at the end of the day, he has a full no trade clause, no move clause, everything. 92 million for 8 years, and we have one of the best wingers locked up. But again, the question that every Leafs fan is going to keep asking is, can this team win a Stanley Cup, win more than one playoff series with this core? And we're just keep investing more and more into it.
Yeah, I think that's the question of the hour, right? Like, can they do it? I think they can do it this year just because of the cap situation going into this summer. They can still do whatever they want, really. They can go get another defenseman. They probably should, actually.
They need to.
Yeah, they need to. And they can do a bunch of stuff still this year. I think the question, and I hate to jump ahead of here, but it's the fact of the matter. You have to kind of look ahead as well, right? What's the future of this team? And like you mentioned, they might have to rely on really cheap free agents, guys like that. I think they have to look towards something that they haven't gotten in years past, especially when Dubas was around. And that's rookies coming up and guys from the Marlies making an impact. I mean, they have guys like, we've talked about it, like Nyes is on the team right now. He has to take a step next year, right? He's still making like the minimum for his rookie contract, his entry level. Mitten, would he make the NHL next year? Can he take a step? Cowan, guys like this, maybe the next year or two, can they step into these roles? And they would be really affordable in those roles instead of going out and getting a guy who's like 3 million, 4 million, and they're probably going to have to do that, especially next year. So like I said, I hate to look forward that far, but I think you kind of have to. It's just human nature, and we know what the Leafs are this year. This contract extension affects next year and years going on, so it'll be interesting to look forward to, but I'm just happy that the stress for this year is gone. Let's just enjoy the playoffs. Let's see if they trade for a defenseman and see if they can win a Stanley Cup. Because last year, they finally get all, they slay their demons, all that stuff. Let's see what they can do this year.
Yeah, and we'll obviously be discussing this contract throughout the season. And another guy to mention is Kiefer Bellows. He's still in the PTO, and he's out there performing like crazy. So they need to rely on some internal guys who aren't making a lot of money going forward. But for now, we need Brad Treliving to step up. That he did his first job or his first task. He now needs to make a trade, and hopefully the team starts to get healthy, specifically the goalies. Martin Johnson's been playing unbelievably. But that'll wrap up the video. Let us know what your thoughts are. Are you happy with this contract? Are you kind of in the middle? Or do you think, I think the consensus ultimately, Darius, is just that it had to be done. Whether you're happy Nylander's a Leaf, the cap situation, let the professionals worry about that. But that'll wrap the video. Let us know in the comments, and we'll see you tomorrow.